Cowboy Jim, this is Saturday night. Nigh on to getting dark outside. I, um, with great sadness, I I watched Danielle Smith's video. She's the premier of our province here in Alberta, and I listened to her speak of her exchange with Carney, and I listened to her voice, and I listened to her words, and I began to wonder, where is the little firebrand that this old cowboy has gotten used to hearing? And she was missing. She spoke of her conversation with Prime Minister of Canada as though there were a chance um, that he could be worked with. And I had the privilege today of listening to a lady who gave a 15-minute dissertation on Alberta's and Saskatchewan's history, um, right up, including the Confederation. And I listened to our history and how we were treated by liberalism, federalism, and in the beginning, it was a liberal government in Alberta that signed an agreement to becoming part of Confederation. And then I listened also to all the leaders, Lahid and so on, people whom I respected, and their hope was that federal Canada, federal government in Canada would let us be part of the governing of our own um, Alberta. And I listened to what Danielle was saying, and it was she had expectations that Carney could be worked with. And I realize in Alberta, as in life, we are wrestling against powers and principalities in high places, not flesh and blood, but demonic evil powers in high places. You cannot get much higher than the Canadian federal government, and it's bent uh, toward destruction, violence, weaponization of the RCMP, and all those things. And I thought, Danielle, what has happened to you, girl? What has happened? Where is the fire gone? She spoke of Carney like she had great expectations from him, like as though she did not know his history, like as though she did not recognize the bondage that the federal government has the West in. And I thought, woman, I I prayerfully hope that you will understand that we are in a warfare. It's a spiritual warfare. Charlie Kirk standing up for what was right, standing up for the God of the Bible, standing up for common sense. And Danielle, you spoke with a corrupt politician, worse, a corrupt banker who's removed his resources to New York from Canada. And I listened and I felt deep sadness, for I am so concerned that I believed in another Alberta politician who once more was going to let us down. I prayed for Pierre Poilievre. I couldn't understand every time he was asked about uh, the independence movement in Alberta that he became infuriated, so angry. And I realized Pierre Poilievre is a federal politician speaking words that would placate the simple. I don't speak for Alberta. I don't speak for ranchers. I had such a small ranch. I I don't speak for seniors, though I'll be 76 come October. I don't speak for anyone. I have no axe to grind with anyone. But when I heard the news about Charlie Kirk, my heart was broken. When I heard how Danielle spoke of the optimism that she had from one conversation from a Prime Minister of Canada who has openly lied, cheated, won his election under false pretenses, saying that Trump was a threat to Canada. Trump is not a threat to Canada. Canadians, the Canadian federal government is the biggest threat that we have, the biggest threat. I, I'm, I never use notes, and I just made a list of a few things. C-69, no new pipelines bill. C-48, ban tankers off the BC coast, but they allow tankers on the East Coast, not on the West Coast. We could get oil to the West Coast. Not a hope in hell of going through that hypocrite Doug Ford's province in Quebec. C-50, oil and gas emissions, which is actually a production cap. And I think of the failures and the waste, Northern Trans Mountain Pipeline, Energy East, oil sands expansion stopped. Liberal federalism crushes any hope for Alberta's development of our natural resources. I did not want to be part of the United States of America, though as a kid, I loved seeing on their money, "In God We Trust." I remember going to the border. I uh, I commented to the border guard, U.S. border guard. I said, "Man, it's a joy to come down here to Montana and go into Wyoming, and uh, I have my handgun locked up in my safe." And he said, "Bring it next time. Next time you come south, bring your handgun to the border, and I'll give you a carry permit while you're down here." And I think of the gun controls that, and I am so vile in myself, in my contempt for our, not mine, Canadian federal government bondage, their overreach on everything. And I hear Danielle Smith speaking optimistically, like, "Hey, I know," this is Danielle speaking, "I know I said we have 9 major bills that will have to be repealed." That was 6 months ago. Or it's going to force us to act. Well, it sounds like Carney's elbows up nonsense, doesn't it? Because now her tune has changed. I think of the number of people in Alberta that pray for Danielle. I know enough about Scripture to know we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but about powers and principalities in high places. And I'm telling you, Danielle sounded no different than Pierre Poilievre. Yeah, everything would be fine as long as we do what the liberal federalist government say to do. Well, I was in the Freedom Convoy down at Goots, Montana. I watched the weaponization of the RCMP. Alberta can, and given the opportunity, will flourish financially. But the Canadian federal government, because of their waste and ineptitude. I met a guy one time. I watched him at work. He was up the food chain quite a bit. I watched everything he did. And after a couple of months, I told a friend, I said, no one can be that stupid to make decisions that are so bad for our company. In this instance, so bad for our country, unless it is intentional. I think everything I've seen, from Carney to Trudeau to RCMP weaponization, I believe that the War Measures Act, if we actually get a vote for referendum, I would want to be sitting watching while they counted them, because I am beginning to trust no one. And you have no idea how much heart attitude I had for Danielle Smith. But it sounds like she did not have the same heart for Albertans as we Albertans had for her. So it is with great sadness that I have had my expectations crushed, crushed. I hope I'm not wrong. I hope that Daniel was not deceived by Satan through his emissary, Arnie. And Trudeau. I hope, I hope that girl will find out what happened to the fire that she always put forth. That's not a stupid woman, that Danielle Smith, but she, in her video tonight, sounded like a lost, a broken, a defeated leader of Alberta. Sad. God bless. I'm not even going to tell you how to be at peace with God. If you're not at peace with God, look at one of my other videos. My heart is far too sickened. The disappointment far too great. You have a good night. Hope one of us does.